All right, so the very first thing we're going to look at, and this has to do with your study guide, is some kind of vocabulary. So you have collinear points and you have coplanar points. So collinear points, it just co meaning the same, linear meaning on the same line. So it's points that lie on the same line. All right, so points on the same line. So if we're looking at this, all right, if I asked you which points are collinear, well, you have P, D, and Z are collinear, and you also have R, D, and A are collinear. We could not say that P, D, and R are collinear because they obviously are on two separate lines. Okay, and then coplanar are just points that are in the same plane. All right, if you remember what a plane is just like a flat surface. We talked about like a pencil going up through a piece of paper would be like a line coming up through a flat plane. So all of these points, all right, are in the same flat surface. Okay, and so all of these points are going to be in the same plane. So our points D, A, and Z coplanar, yes. All right, there's nothing in here that would suggest that they're not coplanar. Okay, and then the last thing let's talk about how to name lines. So if I name line AD, okay, there are multiple names that we could use for line AD. We could also name that as line RD or line DR. All right, we could name it as line RDA. Okay, we could name it as line ADR. All right, so there's several combinations of what we could use to name this line that we have. All right. Now let's talk about maybe the distance between 2 points, all right, on a line. And so let's say we have a point here and a point there. And let's say this point maybe is at the point 5, 4, and let's say this point is at 10, 8. All right, well, what we have is a distance formula that tells us what this distance is between those 2 points. And that formula is going to be given to us. The distance is equal to the square root of x1 minus x2 squared plus y2 minus, or y1 minus y2, excuse me. y1 minus y2 squared. All right, so the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to name our points. All right, so 5 is x1, 10 is my x2. All right, and then in blue, we're going to label our y's. So 4 is y1, 8 is our y2. All right, and so going forward, all you got to do, guys, is you just have to plug this into your formula. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and plug my x1s in there. All right, x1 is 5, and my x2 is 10. All right, then I'm going to plug my y1s in there. Let's see, y1 is 4, and my y2 is 8. All right, and then the formula is the exact same everywhere else. So D is equal to the square root. X1 is 5 minus 10 squared plus 4 minus 8 squared. And now this just goes to a simplification process of simplifying everything that's in the parentheses. So 5 minus 10 is going to give you a negative 5 squared plus 4 minus 8 is a negative 4 squared. And so if we think about that, negative 5 squared, that's like saying negative 5 times negative 5, which is a positive 25. So that's going to give me 25 plus negative 4 squared is negative 4 times negative 4, which is a positive 16. So I'm just going to write those down over here. All right, positive 16. So now if we keep simplifying, 25 plus 16, let's see, what is that? 25 plus 10 is 35. 35 plus 6 is 41. And so we have this is the square root of 41. Okay, we can put that in the calculator and get our decimal. Okay, but let's see, what if I don't have a calculator? What if I find myself taking the ACT, or I'm taking a test, or I'm in a bad spot because my calculator stopped working. And maybe I need to know how to do this without using a calculator. All right, and let's pick the answer choice that makes the most sense. So I know that the square root of 36 is 6, because 6 times 6 is equal to 36. And I also know that 7 times 7 is 49. So the square root of 49 is equal to 7. So what I notice about the square root of 41 is that it would fit in between these, right? And so I'm looking for a distance, okay, that's probably going to be 6.5, somewhere in there, pretty close to that. And so my decimal is going to be 6 point something. That's kind of midway in between these numbers. All right, and so that would be a good way to estimate and approximate what my answer is going to be. Okay, and if we actually put that into the calculator, if I put 6.5, square root of 6.5 in our calculator, let me pull up my calculator real quick. All right, 41, and I take the square root of that. All right, the actual answer is 6.403. Okay, and so my estimation at 6.5 was very, very close. So if I had, A was equal to 7, B equals 5, C is 6.4, all right, and maybe D is equal to 13. Okay, I'm going to be able to, without even putting anything in the calculator, I'm going to know what that answer is just based off of some number sense and some estimation techniques that I have. All right. Next problem. This is going to be related to like number 5 on your study guide, and we're looking for the midpoint between 2 points. Okay, and we just talked about the midpoint is just the point that's in the middle. So we're still looking for an x comma y. All right, and your midpoint is the formula x1 plus x2 all over 2, comma y1 plus y2 all over 2. We're just adding the two x values, dividing it by 2, cutting it in half, adding the two y values, cutting it in half by dividing it by 2. So let's see if we can find the midpoint between negative 6, 2, all right, and the point 4, negative 8. Let's find the point that's in the exact middle between those 2 points. Okay, so again, I'm going to do the same process I did earlier. I'm going to label my x1, all right, and my x2 in red. Then I'm going to label my y1 and my y2 in blue. All right, and so let's just go and let's plug our numbers in. All right, the formula tells us x1 plus x2, so negative 6 plus 4. All right, and that's all divided by 2. And then the other piece of the formula is adding my y value, so 2 plus negative 8. All right, and then we're all going to divide that by 2 as well, because we're finding what's in the middle. So what does that give us? That gives us a negative 2 over 2, comma, negative 6 over 2. All right, and lastly, that simplifies to be a negative 1 and negative 3. So the midpoint between those 2 points is at the point negative 1, negative 3. Okay, moving on to number 6. All right, so we're talking about types of angles here. All right, and for this, we're going to look at just this figure over here that has a bunch of angles, a bunch of intersecting lines. And we need to remember that you have three types of angles. You have acute angles, you have right angles, and you have obtuse angles. Right angles is 90 degrees. All right, we can see that angle 2 is 90 degrees, equals 90 degrees. All right, we know that from the picture because of this little box in there. That signifies that that angle is equal to 90 degrees. All right. There is really only one obtuse angle, which is larger than 90 degrees. And we can see that obviously that is angle number 4. Okay. The rest of the angles, number 1, angle 3, and angle 5, are going to be acute because they are smaller than 90 degrees. All right. We also know that there are things called vertical angles. And vertical angles are just across from one another in an X. So these two are equal, all right, and these two are equal. So in our picture, the only vertical angles that we have is angles 3 and angle 5. So those are actually equal to one another. All right. So let's look at an example here. If I actually give you some stuff to plug in and see if we can work our way around and figure out the rest of this shape. All right. So let's say that we are given that maybe angle 1 is equal to 30 degrees. Okay, so I'm going to plug that in here. 30 degrees. We know that angle 2 is 90 degrees. Okay, and we need to figure out what angle 5 is equal to. All right, angle 3 is equal to, and what angle 4 is equal to. Okay, based off of that information. So I need to think back, kind of way back to the beginning of the year, and I need to think about, all right, I know that angle 1 and angle 2, all right, are pieces, parts of this whole line that makes up a straight line. So this whole piece that goes all the way to there. All right, and so part 1, this 90, plus this second part, 30, plus angle 5, whatever that may be, is equal to 180 degrees. Okay? So we're going through and we're just combining like terms. 90 plus 130. All right, I got angle 5 in there still, is equal to 180. All right, and so angle 5 is just whatever 180 minus 120 is. So angle 5 obviously is 60 degrees. Okay, so angle 5 is 60 degrees. Okay, so we know this is 60. All right, all three of those add together to give you 180. Well, going off of what we know from vertical angles, if angle 5 is 60, angle 3 has to be 60 as well. All right, so that was simple enough. Okay, so if I know that's 60, all right, our last order of business is trying to figure out what angle 4 is. And obviously you can see that, well, there's a straight line. You know that's got to add to be 180. So 60 plus angle 4 equals 180. Or you could just simply say 180 minus 60 gives me 120. And so that is going to be my angle 4, 120 degrees. Okay, so that's kind of working with some angles, seeing how those things work together, all right, and they work with one another. All right, let's go on to another type of thing. Instead of angle addition, let's look at some segment addition. Okay, so I have this long line segment. All right, we say it's a segment because it doesn't go on forever. Okay, and this is A, B, C, and D. All right, and in the problem, we are told that AB is equal to 10, all right, and we're told that BC is equal to let's say 4, all right, and AB is equal to CD. So that means that their distances are the same. So CD must be equal to 10 by that same reasoning. Okay, since we know that. All right, now if I ask for what is the length of AD, how long is AD? Well, obviously A to D is that whole segment. So we can just take 10 plus 4 plus 10. We can get that whole segment is 24. Okay? And that's really as simple as it can get. We just have 3 parts. We're adding all those parts together to equal our whole. All right? So that would get you through 1 through 10 on the study guide. Those are examples that go with those. If you have any questions or any thing that you need help with, then by all means ask me some questions.